Welcome back to TableDropZone podcast.
Hi.
And today we return and have very interesting topic for you. It's about house rules.
Exactly, but before we do that,
We start with the findings for this week.
precisely. So 2 findings. The first one is Battletech Mercenaries is open again for late backers. So if you're not yet in on the action, here's your chance. We also got an email from Catalyst where we could select what we wanted to order. It was a very long list of things. I wanted to order everything, but you cannot.
So it's very difficult choice we had to make.
Yeah. So we made that choice, and if you stick around till next year, we will tell you what our choice is.
We'll show you. We'll have a video to show all the things we
Absolutely.
received from the Kickstarter for
It's
sure.
already in the making, I'm pretty sure. Not here, but at Catalyst. Or in some factory somewhere. I couldn't even tell you what we ordered. I completely forgot everything again. It was a long list of things that you could potentially get.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But what's also cool is another Kickstarter project I backed years ago. Like when I say years, I mean like years ago. Maybe 2015 or so. I forgot. System Shock remake got released. And yesterday evening I installed it. Today in the morning I played a little bit. And now I can't wait to start again. So let's hurry up with this one. It's very faithful to the original. I mean, it's less like for those who played the demo, you know what you get, and that's what the game will also look like. It seems, I have not played too far into it, but I have not seen any changes from that formula. What I can say is that it looks and feels like the original, but is of course heavily updated in playability and graphics. But you still kind of see, okay, this is this room, this is this room, and you kind of feel like you've been here before. You know, when you go into a freshly renovated house you've been in before, it's like that. Like you kind of know your way around, but you kind of, what is all this? What that wasn't there before. It's weird. There's blinking now. Why is it blinking? Make it not blink. Something like that. So, but very cool. I really love it, and I cannot wait to see it through. This is currently my main project.
For the weekend.
Sorry, you will not see me this weekend. Let's get to the main topic.
Yeah, so we will talk about the house rules.
I think we can first start really with a question, like how do house rules come into existence? Like why is it a thing? Why do they come to be? And I think this is the first thing we should look into. I feel like there's 2 ways house rules can come into existence. Actually, maybe 3 ways. The first one is simply misunderstood rules. And honestly, with some of these games, they are so complex.
Yeah.
Like you read something and you just misunderstand it and interpret it differently, whatever. And then you've been playing it for several years with your friends like that, and you never came to think about them again because they work well. And then you have a house rule without even knowing about it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And the second thing is that something just doesn't work for you in a game, or you feel like it would be better if it was different. Right? And then you touch it up a little bit, change it, and then you have like knowingly a new house rule. So I think those are the two main factors that play into why they exist. And the third one is, of course, that you want to introduce new complexity, or you have one of these books with additional skirmish rules for any game at all that add new rules, new structure, new concepts to the game.
Sometimes you were introduced a game by a friend or by someone else, and you didn't check the original. They also add some of their house rule, and you know that with the complexity of the game, you cannot maybe understand or realize that which part is the original rule, which part is the house rule. They add in. So, but you find the game so fun.
Carry over, right?
So just play it. Why not?
And I carry over from someone else's house rules, etc. And he didn't tell you. I mean, also in our BattleTech introductory alphastrike introduction video, we added a few little things as house rules, and I'm not sure if we marked all of them on the next slide. But yeah, I mean, it's how we feel the game works in the most fun way.
Yeah.
And the most agile way, yeah. Why do we need house rules?
So I think just like it really depends on on the stuff we have at home. Sometimes we want to like have more time to play or less time to play the game. So we need to train the game in our house rule that make it like fit our material, our time, and also our interest.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's for sure one very good reason. Yeah, I mean, you kind of, in the end, what is a house rule? Right? A house rule is essentially just an additional change, maybe a minor change, maybe a major change of how the game is played. I think it really starts with how do you measure distance. And like if a mech, for example, is standing right behind an obstacle and you measure 10 inch, do you measure this already as an inch, or do you just say the straight line, even though the mech would then basically crash through part of the obstruction? I mean, this is covered in the rulebook to a degree, but not to a complete extent, like how much of the mech needs to go around an obstacle. Like if a mech is this big, if it's this big, right, there's a difference in the body mass. Like a Kodiak would then need to walk longer distance than a Locust, for example, right? And this already warrants thinking about slight rule adjustments. Also, 2/3 of the mech need to be covered for it to be partial cover. That's the original rule. But if you think about it, what does it mean? Like if a mech is standing behind cover, are you going to really take a measuring tape and go by centimeter height to cover height and measure it exactly of how much is covered? No one will do that in a game flow. So to make the game play more easily,
no,
maybe
some people still make the game, but like
for sure, yeah.
You can rule God, and many people play with the original rule. But the thing is that like what we experience at home, that like we always need to negotiate that like it's a line of sight or not, or many things. So maybe to make it like easier and to understand and avoid any fight on the game, we apply our rule.
Exactly. So just the simplifications, for example, you say, okay, this for every mech is partial cover, no matter how big or how small he is. This is just what we consider partial cover. And then we say, okay, all things 1 inch height, or a little bit like between 1 and 2 inches, is partial cover. And then once you get to 2 inches, it's no more line of sight, for example, right? And this is kind of how the first little house rule adjustments sneak in. And I think why do we need them? Because these games are very complex. Like there's a lot going into playing a BattleTech game. Or any tabletop war game to that matter, right? And very often some of these rules just don't fit for your taste, or for the speed you need, or even for the units you have, as you rightfully said, right? It just doesn't fit with the equipment, the stuff you have. So what you do is you give it just that little bit of adjustment to fit. Or you have a situation that the rules didn't think about to that degree, and you give it just that bit of adjustment to make it function properly. And I think this is a very important aspect to why they are actually needed. Sometimes it's just there's no other way. You need to discuss how to cope with this topic. How do you go about implementing house rules? Like you have now want to add some house rules. How do you go about it fair? I mean, I can always say, my house rule is I win. I'm sorry,
So
it's the
you
rule.
play in my house, we have to follow my own rules, my house rules that make me win.
Exactly, right? So, of course, this is not going to fly, right? So, how do you think we should implement house rules?
So I think first we need to clarify which house rule we want to put in. On the house rule, we should be like have the agreements upfront. And maybe you one side doesn't like it, so we can discard and maybe remove it and add some. Yeah, it depends.
But what about if you encounter a situation during the game that you didn't think about and that's not really covered fully in the rules? then you kind of need to make something up on the fly, right? So then you have discussion.
Yeah.
How do you, like, if the discussion is clearly tending into a direction where like one side would benefit and the other side would not?
No, I mean if
how would that go?
It really depends.
Turn over the table and just run out screaming.
So it really depends on both sides. Both sides in the end, because you should play the game. But for me to solve that issue is that at that time, if we don't agree in advance, then we need to follow the original. Then
yeah, but what if there is no original rule for this specific situation?
I don't know.
This is a tricky situation because
I have solution. So then everything can decide by dice and luck. So like even or odd.
Basically, a coin toss decides and decides the war.
However, I also recommend that you should consider to keep as much as the original rule as possible, because imagine that you will not only play with your friend and family. Sometimes you want to play with a new player. You join the game club, or you go abroad and visit some place that they also play the game. Then normally the original rule will be universal to spend. Then you have more chance to play with new players.
That's actually a very interesting point. At what point do you change the game so far that you're essentially playing a different game? Is it already with the first house rule? Or is it somewhere along the lines? How much of the game can you replace or change until it's a different game? Or is it even a different game? Because in the end you're still playing with battletech miniatures and you're still moving around plastic, rolling dice. I mean, I think the moment you change a fundamental rule, you change something that really swaps out, that makes a car out of the boat, that's the moment where you don't play the game anymore. So for example, in battletech, that would be if you change the way how movement works. Like you say that you work with centimeters and not inches, or the way that rolling works. You're not rolling for 12, and you are not calculating certain numbers. You're changing these numbers, and you're changing how the roll works in itself. For example, roll only with a d6, and then you just count up from 1 to 6, right? I think those are the moments where you've changed the game in such a fundamental way that you're not playing battletech anymore. That is not a bad thing, right? You can play wherever you want, but it's certainly the way that I would consider that it's a different game now. Maybe Hard War or one of the other mechs. You still have mechs, but it's not battletech anymore. And I think the way you can see it best is the difference between battletech and battletech alphastrike. Right? The two games are clearly both mechs. You roll dice. You even have the same dice rolling concept. But it's very obvious that they are two completely different games that have essentially, except for the thematics, nothing in common.
In the end, it's still like what is your interest? What makes you feel happy? How much time you want to invest in it? How you want to play the game? I know that many people they also want to spend time play a game with the family members, and this house rule is king.
Yeah, you play was fun.
But someone that like really want to understand and go deeply in that like battletech or maybe Warhammer world. They want to go with the original and want to discard deeply with other and play with other with any kind of like any players out there, and maybe someday join the tournament. Then it's better to go with the original rule and maybe have some small change how rules that fit you a little bit, but keep the original rule or mostly.
Yeah. There's one thing I think we all kind of, or let's say 99% of all players do to some degree, and that is that some rules are left out. This goes mostly for optional additional rules. When you say, this is just adding so much additional complexity that, you know, let's say you play one game, it's 1 to 2 to maybe 4 hours of playing, and there's a lot of additional math needed in your head, and you just drop that because it's not basic rules, it is something additional you can add, and for example weather conditions. Yeah. Then I think this is something a lot of players do, and I think for this I would actually say I would not even consider it a house rule to not use that rule, because it is an optional additional rule, right? I think this we add to the end, but I fully agree with everything else you said. Make it yours. In the end, it's your game. Have fun. If it's within your family, then it's absolutely in your power. Buy the alphastrike box and just make stuff up. Why not, right? It's part of the fun of it. You can paint the mechs however you want. If you want a pink army, you can make a pink army.
Yeah,
and and nothing can stop you from doing so. And if you want a different set of rules, then that is absolutely in your power to make that decision. But once it's on tournament level, there are others who have to decide on the rules, because else it's not fair. Right? I think this is the core of the whole discussion at the end of it. So live with your house rules, and listen to these two guys.
So you also had that rule, the
rule of subscription.
Yeah. To bring the subscription.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, and that's all for us today. And see you on the next video.
Absolutely, and next week, next topic.
Yeah.
I can see you.